Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first podcast of the day. We're here in Mexico City. Look at the sun behind us. Those of you who are listening, and I'm sorry you can't see this view, but take it from us. It's a great view. It's really warm today, actually, and it's gorgeous.
Beautiful.
Welcome to our Mexico City edition of My Surrogacy Journey, the podcast recorded specifically for US intended parents. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Wes Johnson Ellis, and I'm going to pass you over to my co-host today. It's my husband's not with us, isn't it? Actually, it's quite nice sometimes not having Michael with us. I mean that in the nicest possible way. Jess, over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jess. I am a mom through surrogacy, and I'm the membership manager for our US to Mexico City surrogacy program.
Amazing. I'm going to introduce you to our amazing guests. You are very privileged today to get some real medical and clinical experts who form part of the process. And today's podcast is really specifically talking about the screening process that our surrogates go through when they work with My Surrogacy Journey. We're going to give you an overview of the general components and elements of screening and also all of the clinical elements, which is why we have two amazing guests here today. We have Debbie Evans, who's our clinical director at MSJ. Debbie, say hi.
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Look forward to the wonderful podcast with our gorgeous Natalia here.
And then we have Natalia, who is an MSJ general medical doctor, and she specifically looks after all of the surrogate screening elements. So, Natalia, thank you for being. It's your first podcast. I know you're a little bit nervous.
Podcast.
Don't worry. Natalia is based in our clinical office. She's Mexican, but she has amazing English, which is really good. So just give us a bit of a quick overview, Natalia, who you are and kind of a bit of history.
Hi, everybody. I'm Natalia. I'm the doctor that works here at MSJ Mexico. I'm based in the Polanco office here in Mexico City. I work with surrogates to get them through onboarding and through preparation before they get pregnant. And I keep an eye on them throughout the pregnancy too. Well, it's nice to be here. Thank you.
No, we're glad to have you on the podcast.
Yeah.
And
Excited to learn more and to, pick your brain and learn from your expertise.
So let's talk about general screening then. And I'm going to give everyone a bit of an overview, but let's talk about why screening is so important. Because ultimately, and the ethos and the route that Michael and I have always talked about is that we have to take responsibility as an agency for making sure that any surrogate that we move forward and potentially match with a set of intended parents, that surrogate is the best possible candidate, right? That she has all of the elements in place, screening, and again, I'm going to go through them, but so that when they are matched with a set of intended parents, they are ready to move forward and that there's going to be no, they're not going to meet medical clearance or there's going to be anything that's going to prohibit them from moving forward, because we recognize that, matching with a surrogate is a very emotional thing. It's a massive milestone in your journey, in your pathway. And we want to make sure that we're enabling you to move forward. I know when I've spoke to lots of other intended parents who potentially have worked with other agencies or have done a journey before where they've matched and then things change and it just constantly causes lots of anxiety. It's a very emotional roller coaster, right, Jess?
It absolutely is. And I've mentioned this in previous episodes before, but when I did my journey in the US, our first surrogate match broke because after we had been matched, there was an element of screening that she didn't meet the criteria for. And so we had to break that match. And it was heartbreaking, for us, because we had been through a massive infertility journey. We had made the decision to do surrogacy. We had waited for this match. We had a great meeting.
Everything was going smoothly.
Everything was going smoothly, and you put so much hope into this match, and then for it to kind of stop at that first hurdle once you have really started to form a relationship, or not even necessarily a relationship, but a vision that this could potentially work. Yeah. It takes away that hope, I think, that a lot of intended parents feel. And so I think it's wonderful that so much of the screening with the MSJ program is really front-loaded before match, because it takes away that uncertainty. And we talk about risk. You talk about risk all the time, Wes, and trying to minimize the risk to a journey. And I think the way that the screening program has been set up, has really tried to minimize that risk.
No, totally. And I think that, again, and I've said this before, we're dealing with human beings. Sometimes there are things that happen that we can't predict, and that should be, a rare occasion. But I think ultimately, and I think our responsibility as an agency working with, and our responsibility to surrogates and to intended parents, is that we have to go through all of those checks and balances beforehand to make sure that, and then this happens on both sides, because we are protecting everyone, but just to make sure that we have taken into account all of the elements that are going to potentially cause someone not to be able to move forward. And we've tried to predict and manage all of those in advance of the screening process, so that we are trying to eliminate all of those elements.
Absolutely, because when a match breaks, it's not just the intended parents who feel the results of that. It's that surrogate who had put herself forward to do this absolutely amazing thing, and then to be told that she can't after she got so far.
Yeah.
And it's just, it must be really devastating.
It is. And I don't think we should underestimate either. Like, we talk a lot about how it impacts the intended parents if there's a match break and how they feel. And I think this is exactly this. This is no different for the surrogate. The surrogate is just as invested in, putting herself forward, being prepared to carry for someone else, going through all of the screening process, because it's not an easy process, right? And we shouldn't underestimate the fact that they are equally as devastated if they can't move forward. And I think, we picked this up on the egg donor episode as well, is that sometimes if a surrogate can't move forward, we might have had some unexpected test results as a result of the screening process that has the potential to change the life of that surrogate moving forward. So, this can equally be as devastating for, or life-changing for, the surrogate in that. I know through some of the screening already, we've had some test results back that fundamentally mean the surrogates, that there's something that they need to then, come out of the program and then go and explore how they're going to manage the outcome of these results. So, I wanted to just balance that there. We do talk a lot about intended parents, but we should never forget that surrogates are really equally as invested and really do want to get through and want to be matched and want to be successful on the journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So we are going to get to all the clinical elements in just a second with Debbie and Natalia. But Wes, before we start on the medical route, could you just talk us through some of the other screening elements that surrogates will be going through before that match?
Yeah, because we class, yes, we know that we class it as screening, and there's medical screening, but in our world, there's other elements of screening. So let me give you a general overview of that onboarding and screening process, as we call it, onboarding, just so that people get a general understanding of the detail that we go to, and then we can kind of pick up the clinical elements, because obviously they're really important. But so when our surrogates on board with us, they get a general conversation and call with our surrogate recruitment team, and they will work with them and make sure they understand all of the components of being a surrogate. We make sure they educate them, they understand all of the medical elements, but equally that they keen to move forward and that they meet our criteria. Once they then move beyond recruitment, they move on to onboarding. One of the first things that Natalia will do is do a general health assessment, because we want to make sure, and we can go through that in a bit more detail, but do they meet our criteria? Are they within our BMI range? Are they within our age range? And is there any obstetrics history that's alarming? Just generally trying to really understand early if there's any kind of indicators that might determine that they can't potentially move forward. Because we don't want to waste surrogates' time. We don't want to waste our time. We just want to be efficient. So once they meet that general assessment, we then move them over into a legal assessment. So the lawyers that work with all of our surrogates, independently of us, they will meet with the surrogates. We want to know, is anyone coercing you? Is anyone pressurizing you? Do you meet the legal requirement of being, do you live in Mexico City or Mexico State? Let's see evidence of that. Let's see some ID. Do you have any relevant criminal convictions? Are there any pending legal cases? Do you understand legally what being a surrogate means and how the law applies to you throughout the process? So, and also if they are married or divorced, we just want to see a marriage certificate, a divorce certificate, just so that we are always going to this with our eyes wide open and understanding. And ultimately that legal assessment is to try to prevent any surprises in the future that might have an impact on it. So again, it's just trying to make sure from a legal point of view we've covered all of the bases. And then from that, our surrogates go into a social and economic assessment. So we have a team who work with them. We're assessing their financial status. Are they financially stable, and they're not doing surrogacy out of necessity, because that's not something that we can accept or is conducive to the whole environment. And then once they pass that assessment, our social worker will visit them in the home address. One, to make sure they live where they say they live, and also to make sure that the environment they live in is conducive of a healthy pregnancy. There's no risk factors, no red flags, but also the people they live with. It might be partners, it might be family. Do they know they're doing surrogacy, and are they comfortable with it? That's a really important factor, something that can, if a partner finds out later down the line, may prevent them from moving forward. So again, we're trying to manage those elements. And then later down the journey, if the surrogate becomes pregnant, the social worker will do 2 further visits, the home address, to make sure that there's been no changes in all of that. And then once they pass the social economic element, they move into a psychological evaluation. And we have a psychologist who works within the team. She does a full psych evaluation on all of our surrogates. And also, yes, there is a psych evaluation needed for, elements of the court, but ultimately this is about managing and looking at her mental robustness. Does she have any previous mental health challenges? Is there any additional support that we need to provide? Look, we want people to be honest with us. Mental health doesn't preclude you from moving forward, but what it does do, we need to identify how much support we need to give you. But, and I know we'll talk about this a bit later, but, if the surrogate is on certain medication for managing mental health, that might preclude a moving forward. So it's really important that we understand those elements as well. And then once the psych evaluation has been passed, then the surrogate moves further through the onboarding process, and we move into the more formal clinical screening. So we do vaginal cultures just to make sure there's no infections, and the guys are going to talk about it a bit more in a minute. We do a saline infusion scan just to check the condition of the uterus, and then we go into full blood work. We also check for glucose, thyroid, and vitamin D as well. And then once we pass up all of those elements, the surrogate then is reviewed by the clinical team to make sure that all of the elements are in place, and then that surrogate then is formally signed off and then ready to match. And at that point is when the surrogate is then introduced to the intended parent. So that was a really quick whistle stop of the whole screening process. I talk about it a lot, so I'm very yeah.
Clearly, your stuff.
Yes. Well, with that, yes. So, and there are going to be more episodes that talk about the legal process and, the psychological and all of those elements. So, we're not going to go into it in too much detail, but Michael and I, we're very committed to making sure that our surrogates go through a very robust process. One, because the onboarding process really helps us identify specific needs that the surrogate may have and how we can ensure that we can support those. But it also gives that reassurance that we've done a very rigorous process. And I can honestly say, I don't know of any other agency that operates within Mexico that has such a robust onboarding process before they even are introduced to a set of intended parents.
Within Mexico and, within the US as well, I don't think most US surrogacy agencies operate in the same way, because they don't have that in-house clinical expertise like we do. And I think that's one of the things that makes MSJ really unique.
Yeah.
So while we have our wonderful MSJ in-house clinical team here, can you guys talk to us a little bit more? So Wes already kind of shared about the initial clinical assessment that you will do when a surrogate initially comes to us. Natalia, could you talk a little bit more about what happens there? What kind of questions you ask?
Well, I ask everything, I think.
It's very thorough.
Yeah, very thorough. Well, I take a full medical assessment. It's done first, it's through video call. I ask a lot. I ask about their family history, their personal history, anything that could be considered like a red flag further. I ask a lot about their previous pregnancies because, one of our criteria is they have to be pregnant before. Like how the babies were born, if there were any complications, any diseases, any sort of complication throughout the pregnancy. That could be, I mean, I would do I don't know, another assessment, I think, and then decide if that could go on, if they are still fit for the program. We talk a lot about their diet, their BMI, their healthy habits, like if they exercise, how they eat, a lot about the medications they take. I think we talk about everything, and then if everything's considered like okay and they can like still continue through the process, I can just take them to screening. We have a nurse who helps us with that part. We take them through the screening process, and then that's when we take their lab works. We take a pap smear, we do a scan to show how the uterus is, if there are any polyps, any myomas or anything. We do a lot of things through the lab works. We do a lot of cultures, not just vaginal cultures. We do a lot of to rule out any sort of infection that could be like risky for pregnancy. And then we treat everything that needs to be treated. We help them. We take them throughout the process. They're always with me. Like I call them all the time and we talk all the time. I give them, if they need like antibiotics or any sort of medication. We talk with the nutritionist team if they need like changes through their diet or changes throughout exercise or anything. We give them, I don't know, maybe roughly like 2 months time to change everything and help her. And then just if they are okay and if they can move on, they can move on through the onboarding part of the process.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
So that all of that happens.
All of that happens. Yeah.
Gosh.
I mean, it's not just me. We have a medical team.
Yeah.
We have a nurse. We have another doctor that works at MSJ. So, I mean, it's teamwork. Yeah, it's not just me.
It is, yeah, but I also think that the surrogates need that support, and we need to make sure that if anything comes up that we need like antibiotics or there's any infection, like one is about how do we educate them so that there's no reinfection, and that might include their partner. And managing the sexual health of their partner as well, so that we're managing reinfection. But these are the lengths that we go to because it's the right thing to do. We've got to make sure they are supported clinically. And Mike and I, we have a clinical team across all of our destinations, and we care about the clinical support that our surrogates and members get. And this is not just about like all of our members get that level of clinical support. And it's really important to us that we have the skill within our organisation who can advise people. It makes us efficient. It means that we can manage delays. We can manage any treatment. We're not then having to send the surrogate to another doctor to be able to manage that process. It's done in-house and it's all very much aligned, which means that we can really efficiently move our surrogates through the onboarding process. They want to move efficiently through.
Yeah.
We want them to move efficiently through. It's a win-win. And having a medical team within our organisation really helps us navigate that and affect that process.
Yeah, we actually do treat their partners. We give them antibiotics too. They have medical advice. I mean, when we give the results, we usually we do it either face to face or through the phone or through a video call, whatever is easier for them. Because some of them don't live close by to the office, so sometimes it's just easier to call them. And we talk about everything. We clear out any sort of questions they could have, and we explain how they need to take the treatment, how the partner need to take the treatment. How to have a safe sex life, I guess, just to be protected and it's their health comes first, and we make that very, very clear. They have to come first. Yeah.
And I think that it's also about them having access to the medical team should they have any queries, if they're getting any symptoms. It's really nice to have that access to be able to continually be able to monitor their health throughout the whole process, and they have access to the clinical team right the way through the duration.
Yeah, and what you alluded to earlier was sometimes we're giving results that these surrogates may never have expected. Suddenly they've got high cholesterols or low vitamin Ds or high glucose, and this is a completely new diagnosis to them. And the support that they get in managing that and be the appropriate referral to the right person or managing it in-house and repeating those screening in a couple of months, as Natalia said, is really, really important. And the relationship that the medical team builds with these surrogates is incredible and something that no other agency that we know of does.
And just to touch on that though, so if a surrogate did get a result that wasn't what she was expecting, and that meant she couldn't move forward in our program. Obviously, we would not be able to move her forward, but we would then refer to a doctor who could then help her understand
Make sure
what
she's
the outcome is. We would cover the cost of that referral, because again, it's our we have duty of care to everyone that we work with, and it's like, as a result of this, we take some responsibility that she's been given information, and we need to give her the facilities to be able to then explore how she can manage that, or what the plan is moving forward to deal with whatever the outcome of those results works.
Yeah, which is amazing. Not every, well, certainly not every organization would do that. Most of them just say,
Yeah.
I'm sorry that this is the results and you can't be a surrogate, and
Yeah, but
go on your way. But as you say, it's the right thing to do. The right thing to do. Right.
and also it demonstrates that we want people to want to work with us, and we want them to work with us because we look after them, and we always do the right thing, and they can have a smoother journey as possible, and as a supported journey as possible. And it's all about retention, right? If people want to work with us again after they've had a good experience, are they going to tell everyone that they've had a really good experience? That's
You'll find that many agencies will say no at the first hurdle.
Yeah.
So you've got an anomaly. One of the results is not good, and so they say no, you can't work with us. We do the opposite. We try and support them and help them. We've got programs. We've just put in place a RAG system, a red, amber, green system, which highlights what's the risk, how high on that system is it, and what extra support do they need. So Natalia, you can probably talk more about the RAG system and what you do within each of those elements.
Yeah, we built kind of like a triage with the nutritional team too, and with the psychological team too. It's teamwork, as I said before. We classify them with colors, kind of like a traffic light system. Yeah, it's just to prioritize whoever needs the most help. So if they have, I guess, a very high BMI, something that would prevent us from moving forward through preparation or embryo transfer before, we mark them as red, just saying they need a lot more consultations and appointments with me, with the nutritional team, with our nurse, with the psychological team, whatever they need. We also mark them, even if their BMI is not as high, but they have really high cholesterol or high glucose or another thing that flags me they need more attention. We keep them as red, and they get weekly consultations, weekly appointments. They get messages almost, I think, every day, just to say how are you feeling? Is everything okay? Has anything changed? Everything. Yeah.
I think
It's completely unique.
it is completely unique, but for me, it's really important. And Jess mentioned, I'm always talking about risk. How do you manage the risk? And if a surrogate's got glucose, or cholesterol's higher, or BMI's not within range, then we need to invest more time and energy in supporting them to get them to where they need to be, because at that point we know that they can be a good candidate, but they just need a little bit more support. And the RAG system really helps us make sure that everyone gets the level of support that they need within it. So if a surrogate screen, she doesn't need that much support. She still gets a certain level of interaction with us, but she doesn't need any additional support. The amber flag is that they need a little bit more support, and but it's all very much tailored around it. For me, there's no other way to manage this. We don't want to dehumanize it, but while we put them in, and obviously this is just an internal way of us being able to efficiently manage them. But ultimately, it is designed to give people the level of care they need, rather than just assuming everyone can get the same.
Yeah. And that works for us, because we don't move them forward until we know they're ready to be matched.
Yeah.
So that doesn't cause us any delays or any sort of how you said the match gets suspended or anything. We make sure they get what they need to get. And we do explain before we don't want to make it less humane, I guess, how you said. We do explain to them it's just you're gonna get a lot more messages because you have this or that, and because we have to treat you. And like I said before, we always make sure they understand their health comes first. So I mean, it's just for them, we're trying to help them. Even
Let's try to enable them to move through, and giving them that support does enable them to move through.
Exactly.
And we're really lucky. We have an in-house nutrition team. They're really in tune with how the surrogates, and like that nutrition team isn't just from boarding, they work with them all the way through to manage their healthy diet and pre-pregnancy, all of those things. But from an onboarding point of view, they're a real specialist. And then all of those surrogates that need the most support, they then meet them in person, because we've all tried to lose weight at some point, and how difficult it is just picking up on weight, and you need that support. You need a cheerleader, you need someone kind of in your corner saying, look, come on, you can do this. And how do we promote them to get to the point of, like, they're obviously invested in being a surrogate, which is why they're here. We just then need to sometimes give some people a little bit more support to kind of get them to where they need to be. But that's our ethos, and that's why we do what we do.
They're amazing advocates for our surrogates, our medical team. They really are. They you said that you champion them. We want them to do well, and
we do. Need someone in their corner. They need someone supporting them. They need someone advocating for them. That's really important. That is, and we will always do that. We advocate for everyone, but ethically, we do want to make sure that surrogates feel like we've got them and we've got their back, and we are going to support them. That's really important.
And this is such an overwhelming process for everybody involved. But as a surrogate, particularly, I think the medical side, they're going through something that yes, they'll have had a pregnancy. Actually, the preparing to be a surrogate is something that is completely unique and incredibly overwhelming. And I think, particularly those of us who have been intended parents, we go through something that's incredibly overwhelming, and there's a lot of medical elements to it too, but not, I think in this process, not anywhere near what the surrogates do. And the amount of testing, the amount of preparation that they have to do just to get to the embryo transfer, it's
a lot.
It's amazing. So it's just amazing that you guys provide so much support and guidance and advocacy for them, so that they really feel like they're not doing this alone.
Yeah.
It must be incredible for the intended parents to know that our surrogates have that level of support and screening, the reassurance that they must have.
Absolutely.
That level of care too.
Yes. Yeah, they must do that test. Here's the results. Here's the test. This is why we've done it. These are the results. Let's explain it, and what support you through it. I think that's amazing. What? Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. Like, what I was about to say is, like, we know that, like, pregnancy is risky.
Yeah.
Surrogates, like, in some regards, there's the potential to put their lives at risk.
What do I always say?
Do no harm.
That's rule of medicine. That's rule of medicine.
Do no harm. Where's your tattoo? Yeah. But they do, and that's the thing, is, like, we want to make sure that with all of this screening, all of this support, it's about how do we continue to minimize the risk to the surrogate and minimize the risk potentially to the baby and to the intended parents. We don't want to put the surrogate at risk in any way, shape or form. And if it's about bringing her BMI down into range, that's because, yes, it's better from a fertility point of view, but it's also about obstetrics and the risk around obstetrics, and that's and why we monitor cholesterol and TSH and all of those elements. It's all designed to manage the risk to the surrogate.
Well, and I think that's an incredibly important point, because I think a lot of intended parents have the viewpoint that all this screening is done to make sure that the surrogate is healthy and can support a pregnancy, but also so that they have the highest chance of a successful embryo transfer. But I think it's incredibly important what you just said, that actually it's about the health of the surrogate.
Yeah.
And it's not just an embryo transfer, it's about a healthy pregnancy, a healthy person.
Yeah.
And that needs that, as you said, it's all about her health. That needs to come first.
It is. And look, our whole screening process and the support we give our surrogates is designed to look at every single stage of the journey. So when we're looking at vitamin D, when we're looking at glucose levels, it's all linked.
Does we just love that Wes knows all of these medical terms now? He's becoming the professor.
I don't want to stay in my lane though, right? I gotta stay. But it is all engineered, and that's why we screen so much, because all of those elements have an impact on either, and the way we do the cultures and the saline infusion scan, it's all about, implantation. It's all about pregnancy. It's like every single stage of this is covered. It's not that we just
there for a reason.
It's really engineered to make sure we are considering everything.
So Wes just jumped the gun a little bit with his expert. I mean, I think you might be able to maybe not qualify as a medical doctor, but acknowledge, but you can but in terms of actually what we're looking for, I think a lot of intended parents are really curious about what specific screening we're doing. What are we actually looking for in surrogates? And, we were talking about your red, amber, green, or I guess red, yellow, green for our American listeners.
Yeah.
What would be one of those things that you're screening for, which would put them in a yellow or an amber category? What would be something that would put them in a red? I mean, I know that you referred to that before, Natalia. You just went over some of it but I think it'd be really great to kind of almost have a list.
Deb, give us a kind of
Yeah, so it's there's an element. Several of the elements of the screening that we do are for the health and security of the surrogate herself. So the cholesterol, the glucose, the TSH, they're all about her. Then
you just, what's TSH?
sorry, thyroid stimulating hormone. So the thyroid has a big element of supporting a pregnancy, and if you don't have the right levels of thyroid in your system in the early stages of pregnancy, it could be harmful to that pregnancy. So we need to be really mindful of that. But we also do screening to make sure that we're going to protect the pregnancy and the baby. So we don't want to have anything that could potentially harm that baby moving forward, such as HIV, hepatitis B and C, some of the STDs, chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis. They all could be potentially harmful if in levels that were not being monitored or looked after in the correct way. So there's elements of the screening that protect the surrogate and her health by avoiding putting her at any risk during a potential pregnancy, and then the other screening to protect the unborn child.
Amazing. And Natalia, you talked a little bit before about some of the scans that surrogates go through. Could you talk a little bit more about those? What's involved in a scan? What specifically you're looking for?
We look at everything as a whole, I think, first. If there are any polyps, especially in the endometrium, so inside, like where the baby is going to grow, if there are anything that we should remove before the pregnancy, that's important. We have to flag them. They can continue potentially. It's just we have to do a special treatment before we can preparate them.
Yeah. And the polyp, for those of our listeners who don't know, is kind of like an internal skin tag, isn't it? So
That is exactly how we describe it.
And I think what we're looking for in those scans and why they're so important is that, is there anything in their uterus that's going to have an impact on implantation?
Yeah.
Any previous C-section scarring, any polyps,
He's off again.
anything like that. That's right.
Yes.
It's about my answer that the uterus is in the best condition it can be. Because when I talk to intended parents, I talk about success. And like, there's no one silver bullet that's going to give you much better success. But there are lots of, and what we look at is like every single stage of the journey, how can we maximize success? So making sure that the surrogate is the healthiest she can be, a BMI is within range, all of those things increase the chance of implantation. But, having a great uterus is another measure of increasing the chances of success.
Absolutely. And I think,
Go on. Sometimes they'll be worried about that scan. What does it mean? What is it? And Natalia and the rest of the team will explain in lots of detail of what that means. It's a very simple, easy examination. It's held in the doctor's.
It's painless for the surrogates too.
Yes, it's we're injecting warm saline into the uterine cavity that exposes the cavity, and so that we can see and look for any of these anomalies that could potentially prohibit an embryo implanting. And that's what we don't want to put everyone through all of this, and then you find that you've got a cavity that can't accept an embryo.
And who does the saline infusion scans? Is that you and the other members of the MSJ medical team? Is that somebody else?
That's somebody else. It's another doctor. He's called Dr. Miguel. Very good doctor. We work with him. He's at Hospital Angeles, which is a very good hospital too. That's where the screenings, the pap smear and everything's done, the scan too. He does that for us. So he's a specialist. So that's why we go with him. Yeah.
Amazing. And of all those conditions that we've just talked about, I mean, obviously we can't go through every single one on the red, yellow, green or the red, amber, green system. But, could you just give a couple of examples of, so for example, the TSH, thyroid condition that you talked about, Debbie, if somebody has decreased or increased levels, is that, where would that put them on the scale?
Increased.
Yeah.
So that would put them into the red. At the beginning, until we can titrate it and get them under control. We use a very simple medication, thyroxine, if it's needed within the levels that we've got, and we start them on a very low dose, and you very quickly find that they will pick that medication up and that their thyroid improves within 6 weeks. But we generally test 6 weeks to 8 weeks after the initial test, and we hope to see improvement. Sometimes you might need to titrate the medication a little bit, put it up a tiny bit more, but it's really important that we get the level correct to sustain a nice pregnancy.
Yeah.
And what about vitamin?
Yeah, vitamin D was when I first came to Mexico City a couple of years ago. It was really shocking to me to find that many women had low levels of vitamin D. And then I realized that, women in Mexico City don't want to be exposed to the sun. They don't want to have their skin darkened. So they do have these lower levels. And that was quite alarming in a beautiful sunny city as we see today. I'd expect that in the UK. And so it's a very treatable condition. You give some supplements in the form of vitamin D. And again, they pick that up very quickly within their bodies. They're able to metabolize it very smartly. And within 2 months, their levels are back to normal levels. But vitamin D, again, low levels in vitamin D could have an impact on the pregnancy. It can cause early miscarriages, early anomalies within that first trimester in pregnancy. So it's important we get those levels correct.
Amazing.
Yeah, sorry, Teresa, but I think that's the surrogates don't move forward. So if we find out that, like you said, just before embryo transfer, that the surrogate's got raised TSH levels, then that means that surrogate, that embryo transfer can't take place.
No.
We then have to delay the whole process until her thyroid level comes back down, which means that she doesn't move forward. We have problems we potentially have problems with screening again. All of the way that we do it is designed to stop problems happening in the future. And by identifying these things early, it means we can treat them, we can keep them in a holding pattern until they're at the point where we can then move them forward to match it. And that's exactly why it's been...
We thought long and hard about developing this program, and this really is the correct way to do things. You talked about it, Jess, about having that disappointment when your match fell apart. We don't want that to happen. It's not in anyone's interest to have those matches not correct further down the line. So we make sure that when our surrogates are matched, they are ready to be matched. Absolutely, in every form.
And I think that's such a game changer for everybody on this journey, because it means that once you are matched, as an intended parent, as a surrogate, and everybody feels confident and can move forward really quickly. And so I think, to me, when I first heard about the program, I thought, gosh, well, that's no brainer. Why isn't everybody doing that?
Well, the thing is, though, like always made sense to us. I just can't understand why we aren't doing it this way anyway, which is why we've developed it. It just makes absolute sense. It's our obligation. It's the right thing for the IPs. It's the right thing for the surrogate. It just seems the most logical way. And I think what happens, though, is that there's risk and cost associated with it. And sometimes, when a surrogate, she gets so far through onboarding, and let's be clear, once a surrogate starts moving through onboarding, as an agency, it's costing us, right? And we accept that. And there are some occasions where a surrogate can't move forward, and we have to cover that cost. So, but again, that's our responsibility, because that means we're only ever going to provide surrogates who have all of the key requirements to be able to be successful as a surrogate. And I think the reason why this isn't done widely in other organizations is because there's a cost associated with it, and they don't want to absorb that cost, and they want to put all of the risk associated with the surrogate moving forward from a screening and cost point of view onto the intended parents. And I believe that when we're working with our surrogates and our intended parents, we're working as a team, and we jointly have to take responsibility for that process. And I firmly believe that that's the right way to do it.
Yeah, and that's why we developed, or Natalia and the team developed the RAG system that we keep talking about, because that helps us support and identify correctly at every point. So we're not missing these surrogates. They're not sitting somewhere that they haven't been followed up. We want to work smartly. We absolutely care 100% to make sure that we're getting it right for our surrogates. And this system makes us really focus in and support them in the best way that we should be.
Well, I think the care and responsibility that everybody feels towards the surrogates or prospective surrogates at this case is just so apparent, and it's lovely to see. And we're treating them like the amazing people that they are. And I think
Absolutely.
hopefully they can recognize and feel that level of respect and care and almost obligation towards them and towards their health that you so clearly feel.
Yeah.
So
And we're doing more to enhance that onboarding and matching and preparation embryo transfer process, which Natalia heads up from a clinical point of view. but we're bringing more team members in. We're looking at how we can support better. And it's, this is now just fine tuning some of the elements, but it's exactly the right thing to do. And it is all part of setting the standard. And that's exactly what we're doing here in Mexico City. We're setting the standard for surrogate onboarding. We're setting the standard for surrogate screening and setting the standard generally for how a balanced journey should happen when you're doing surrogacy through Mexico City. So I think that just closes it off really nicely, actually. Yeah. Talking about setting the standard, and you'll hear more about that. But look, thank you both for the work you do in supporting all of our members. I know that it's massively appreciated and it is game changing. So thank you. And thank you for listening and watching, because I think this is a topic that we get lots and lots of questions on all of the time when we're doing our consultations. But, hopefully, if you have listened, it gives you a much better understanding of our process and why we do it. So I think sometimes it's the why, isn't it?
Yes.
People hear and see what we do, but they can't quite often correlate, some of the, vitamin D, TSH. So there's these, why, what does that mean? How does that impact the journey?
Well, and also why we do it differently than other agencies, because, every agency, gosh, I really hope every agency has some sort of screening process in place for their surrogates. But hopefully now, speaking with Natalia and Debbie and getting all of the fabulous medical advice from Dr. Wes over here, you guys can you as prospective intended parents can understand why we put so much emphasis on screening the surrogates the way that we do, because we just think it's better for everybody.
And it's the right thing to do.
And it's the right thing to do. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Natalia, Debbie, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you all of our wonderful listeners for joining us today.
So if you like this episode, you can like it, you can share it, and there's more episodes available. The podcast is really designed to help you understand all of the key journeys, and all of the individual episodes are really helps as a resource to understand those components. If you want to find out more information, head over to our website, which is mysurrogacyjourney.com, or you can reach us on our socials. I'm not even going to say what the socials are because Michael's not here and I never know them, but that's all good. You can see it in the bio.
Did you also just say that you could also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our app? Did you say that already?
No, but you did, and well caught there, Jess.
Great.
See, we're a really good combination. Jess picks up the things I get to talk about, which is exactly, you get used to working with me now, though. Michael's redundant now. Who needs a Michael none these days? It's just Jess and I. We should have our own show.
Yes, exactly. Season three. So yes. So please don't forget that there is another episode. In fact, there are lots of amazing episodes. And so you can listen to this via our app, via Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, or YouTube. There's still plenty of time to get another fix. And if you have enjoyed it, please leave us a review and subscribe.
Yes, and if you are watching it on our YouTube channel, hi. You can like, subscribe, ring the bell, whatever it is. Michael says all of the time. I just never know what it is, but you know what it is, right? Subscribe. Yeah. My kids tell me they watch YouTube all the time and they're like, click, like, subscribe, all of those things. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, look. Thank you very much, everyone. This has been a really insightful and interesting podcast. We're going to leave you now. I'm going to say, I'm looking out this beautiful view of Mexico City. Hasta luego, and enjoy your day.
Thank you very much.